Hello everyone and welcome to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society's first Friday, July virtual pub night. I'm Richard Goslan, I'm the editor of the Society's members magazine Unfiltered, and I will be your pub host tonight. So what have we got ahead? Well, this month we're celebrating, we're using the 4th of July, US Independence Day, as an excuse really to celebrate the bourbon cask that comes from the States over to Scotland and matures so much of our whiskey. So we're using that as a bit of an excuse to celebrate the bourbon cask. We're going to have some blues-infused music with jazz singer Ali Affleck coming up. We're going to head to the west coast of the US with our ambassador there, Jenna Elie, who's going to mix a couple of cocktails for us. And then we're going to get some cask expertise from Willie Taylor at Speyside Cooperage, who's obviously a font of knowledge all about the bourbon cask, so you can get your questions ready for Willie. We'll have our pub quiz, and then we're going to go to France because later this month, obviously, it's Bastille Day, the French National Day, so we're going to use that as an excuse to head away from whiskey a wee bit and talk about Armagnac and Cognac with our ambassador, Alan Wood, who many of you will know. So great to see you all. I hope you're all doing fine. I want you to get involved tonight. Let us know where you are, what you're up to, what you're drinking, and get involved with your comments and any questions that you might have for our guests this evening. So let me, first of all, say hello to my co-host for this evening. Andrew Park is a well-known face at the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. He has worked in the venues, I think most noticeably Queen Street. He's worked in our member services team, and he works with the EU team as well now to organise tastings. So well known within the society and a whisky expert. So I'm very happy to have him on board. Andrew, how are you doing? Happy first Friday.
Very well. Happy Friday. Hello, everyone. How are we all doing? I would certainly take the expert and put it more as a novice, a keen novice in our whisky trades. So yeah, happy to be here, Richard. And yeah, to everyone out there, let's have a chat, get involved. Let's see what you've got to say. Hope everyone's doing well.
Well, we're going to have some music from Ali Affleck coming up very soon. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to kick off with some input from Jenna Elie. She is our West Coast ambassador in the US, and it's a holiday in the US today as they get ready for Independence Day tomorrow. But Jenna was kind enough to pre-record something for us all about a couple of nice cocktails for summer. So I will let Jenna tell you what she's been up to. Here she is.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jenna Elie, and I am the West Coast ambassador for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society of America. I am located here in sunny Los Angeles, where I am working from home in my beautiful makeshift office and hosting lots of online tastings and events with my colleagues Ben and Zach, who I'm sure many of you may know. And so I thought it would be fun to pop in and say hello and see how everyone was doing, and to share with you all two fun Scotch cocktails that I really love to make. I don't know if it's hot and sunny where you are in the world, but these are perfect kind of summer drinks that are pretty easy to make and with ingredients that you may already have at home. So I wanted to pop on and share those with you. So let's get started. So one of my favorite cocktails is called an Old Pal, and that is typically
Richard, I think we've lost sound, if you can hear that.
peel inside. And then this is kind of the kicker. I like to use a spicy bitters to kind of add right on top just for that little extra spice kick. So I will cheers you all. Let me give this one a taste test just to make sure I did it right. Oh, it's beautiful. It's so good. You're still getting that beautiful, you know, spicy kick that you would from rye whiskey, but with our spicy and dry flavor profile. So the other cocktail that is kind of perfect for, you know, being out in the sun and being outside, it's nice and refreshing and very easy to make, is a highball. And I personally love peated highballs. I think that I really love to have peat in the summer. I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it, but it's whiskey. Is there really a right way to enjoy it? And so I, again, just love having those crisp, beautiful, you know, refreshing peated highballs. And so, glass. Collins glass, or I don't even think this is a proper Collins glass, but a Collins light glass, a tall glass will do. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to add some ice into it. Try to make as little noise as I can. All right. So we're going to add our ice into our glass. And then what I do is, I'll show you the whiskey I'm using in just a second. I do 2 ounces of a peated malt. And for this one, I'm actually using Beachcomber, which is just a really beautiful summer whiskey on its own, or a warm weather whiskey on its own. And so I thought that it would make a great highball. And I've actually tried this a few times and I've really enjoyed them. So I'm using Beachcomber. So just 2 ounces of that. And then I'm going to take my soda water. I don't know if this was, you know, shaked before. So, and then I'm just going to top the glass with my soda water and give it just a little swirl. And last but not least, I like to, again, use lemon. I just think lemon, you know, wedges or a lemon peel in cocktails just really adds a beautiful acidity. I actually prefer it in old fashions too over an orange. But so lemon wedge inside, make it look pretty and refreshing. And I guess I should taste test this one too, just to make sure I did it right. It's delicious. It's refreshing. It's crisp. You're still getting that, you know, beautiful whiskey profile. It's not masked by a lot of other, you know, mixers or flavors. You're still getting a very spirit-forward cocktail. And so that's why I love it. It's spirit-forward and refreshing at the same time. So those are 2 cocktails that I personally love to make, and I think they're pretty easy and, you know, can be made in a pinch. So I hope you all have a great 4th of July if you're here in the States or wherever you are in the world. I hope you are well and safe and healthy. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.
There we go. Jenna Elie from the West Coast. Sorry about the loss of audio there, but hopefully you got enough of that to get a taste of Jenna's cocktails there. Okay, I'm hoping and praying actually that we've got Ali Affleck almost ready to go. Ali, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I've had to switch my camera. Ooh, can you see me?
No, we've lost.
No.
We've lost you.
I've had to get a different camera. Can you see me okay?
We can see
No,
you.
I'll just hold it. Okay.
Ali, are you ready? Do you want us to come back to you, or are you ready to go?
Well, if you could give me 2 seconds, because otherwise I'm holding the camera. You give me 2
Well,
seconds and put the camera back up, because the other one wasn't working. 2 seconds.
We've got plenty of time, so me and Andrew are going to have a drink, and we'll come back to you. Okay?
Perfect.
We'll see you in a little minute. Right, Andrew. I don't know about you, but I need a whiskey. I need a whiskey. So let's talk whiskey. That's why we're here this evening. We've got a new Outturn out today for First Friday, July. And as we've been talking about, we're celebrating the bourbon cask. And from what I could see, there was like a really good selection of bourbon cask matured whiskies. And I know that you've picked one out from the Outturn. So tell us what you've gone for this evening.
Right, so we've had one of the warmest and driest summers on record, apart from today when it's decided to piddle it down. It's good whiskey drinking weather outside. So I was actually thinking along the lines of a nice summer whiskey and something that really sings in harmony between the spirit and, of course, the bourbon wood. So this first Friday, we have only had one sherry cask, and that's the first time in 5 years I've ever seen it so bourbon eccentric. And it's a good thing. It is a really good thing. So what I went for is a wine lover's whiskey. It's a really good intermediate starter style whiskey, and particularly for summer because it's light and floral. It is from our light and delicate, and it's cask 44128. It's a Speyside gem, this one. What I love about the spirit that's produced here is they use worm tubs, so that adds an extra layer of mouthfeel to the dram. So if you pick it up, and it's a refill bourbon barrel, so it's the workhorse of the industry, and that's why we're here today, is to celebrate that bourbon workhorse that keeps our spirit alive. You got a dram there, Richard?
I certainly do. I've got the 44 as well, Andrew. And it's I have to say, it's from one of my favorite distilleries. I love this distillery because it usually gives you a nice kind of hefty, almost a meaty note. You know, it's a robust dram, which I really like.
Yeah.
This one is not as robust. I think it's like it's 15 years old. It's light and delicate, but it's still got that kind of, I don't know, I'm getting a bit of prosciutto, or, you know, I'm thinking of like a gammon steak with a pineapple ring on it, something like that. It's still got that slight meatiness.
I know, and that's why I selected this whiskey, because it really lets the spirit character shine through, but it takes enough from the cask, enough of the vanillins, the toasted elements, and with 15 years in the cask, it's had time to breathe. That's why it's down at 55.9. So it's a bit stronger than your average beer, but it is just a beautiful, beautiful dram. So
yeah,
I'm trying mine neat just now.
Yeah. Mm.
And it just coats your mouth, and it really reminds me of a bit like high school, shaving pencils and jelly sweets. And it brings a smile to my face, and it's just one of those drams that is just light and fruity. And the alcohol makes you kind of, your palate zing. It makes you salivate, and it wants you just to enjoy it and sip and savor and let that long-lasting spirit come through.
I think that's the beauty of it's because it's a refill cask, so it's not overwhelmed by any wood influence. It's just been sitting there nicely and quietly for 15 years. And as you say, that distillery character is there, but it's mellowed over those years without having any kind of big punch out of the wood.
Mm-hmm. It's like having a very deep opera singer, a male opera singer, and a very light female vocalist. They're just singing in harmony, and it really brings the cask to life. But what I've done, and what I do recommend, is add a little drop of water. So I've done it in this one in a separate glass. And you can see slightly it's starting to go a little bit cloudy. It's been in the glass for 25 minutes. Again, that's a really good sign that it's unfiltrated, it's natural whiskey. And with that water, it brings out a little bit more of the floral notes. Yeah. So a lot of daisies, daffodils, a little bit of Parma violet.
That's John McShane there, Andrew, saying a whiskey blogger today was amazed we got a 44 that was light and delicate, but it really is, you know. Yeah, I kind of agree, because you're used to it being a bigger, meatier, more robust dram, but this one really is light.
Mm-hmm. And some of the recent 44s that we've had them from the oily and coastal profile, spicy and sweet. We've had deep, rich, dry fruits. It really is a very diverse whiskey, particularly when we put it into our own wood and we manage that wood so closely. We can change that complexity of the whiskey. It is just so good for having that base spirit.
Yeah,
can't sing about it even more. And it's a hop, skip, and a jump from one of my favourite hotels, which is the Craig Elkie Hotel, and a good partner bar of ours.
Yeah, great place. Yeah, good stuff. All right, and I know
having a wee dram up there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of other brilliant bourbon cask whiskies in the Outturn, but that is that's an absolute belter.
Yeah, and if you're sharing a dram with us, pop it in the comments. Let us know what you're drinking. I can see Harry's got a wee 64110. Good man,
nice.
cracking dram, that one.
Anyone else out there tonight? Not yet. Well, let us know what you're drinking. I think at this point we can go back to Ali, who is ready to go. Fingers crossed. So Ali was meant to kick us off with some blues music to get us in the mood across the pond. So let's see if Ali's ready to go. Ali, you all good?
I'm good. Can you see me okay?
We can. We can see you and we can hear you.
Okay. I'm going to start us off a wonderful song called The Downhearted Blues. One of my favorites. Let me know if things are too loud. It sounded good earlier. So here we go.
Take it away.
Wrong one. Excuse me, that's my French one. Everything's happening tonight. Here we go. This is the one. Yeah, that's better. Gee, but it's hard to love someone when that someone don't love you. I feel disgusted, heartbroken too. I've got those downhearted blues. Once I was crazy about a man, he mistreated me all the time. Next man I find better, promise me he'll be mine, only mine. Trouble, trouble, I've had it all my days. Trouble, trouble, I've had it all my days. You know it looks like trouble is gonna carry me to my grave. Well, I walk these streets, wringing my hands and cry. Yeah, I walk these streets, wringing my hands and I cry. But I know who's gonna keep me satisfied. Gotta stop it here. The bottle in my hand. Yes, I do. I've got to stop it right here. The bottle in my left hand. The next man that I find, well, he's gonna come under my command. Well, it may take a week and it may take a month or two. You know, may take a week, maybe a month or two. But that day that I quit you, it's coming home to you. That's right. Hi. I hope you could hear me okay there. Am I still with you? Let me have a look. Oh, yes, I am still there. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine, Ali. You're doing great. The cat's doing a great job as well.
Here we go. We're going to do another one for you. I'm going to see if he'll leave me alone for 5 minutes. He tends to get upset when I sing. We're going to do one called the Memphis Blues, which is a historically important song. And it's being done by the greats like Ma Rainey. And here we go. They got a leader there. Lord, he slickens his hair. He sure pulls a mean bow. Then that big bassoon. Seconds that trombone screw. Say he sounds just like a sinner on revival day. That melancholy strain, haunting refrain, sounds just like a sorrow song. Here comes the part that wraps itself around my heart. Yeah, there's nothing like the handy band plays the blues so grand. Play it out. Well, hear me, people, won't you hear me? I pray. Take a million lessons till I learn how to play, 'cause I hear it fine. Can't get that blue refrain. Yes, there's nothing like the hand band. Play the blues so well. Yes, right. Hey. Now, I think we're going to switch it up slightly with this next one, which is very closely associated with, of course, the wonderful Mr. Fats Domino. You'll recognize it. Sing along if you can. Well, I found my thread on blueberry hair, on blueberry hair.
the wind in the willow, playing love's sweet symphony. But all of those vows we made were never to be. Well, now we're apart. You're a part of me still. For you were my friend. Oh, blueberry. Well, I found my friend on Blueberry Hill, where I met you, my dear, and you know you brought my heart such thrill. The moon stood steady, oh yeah, on Blueberry Hill, and it lingered until my dreams came true. The wind in the willow played a sweet memory. But all of those vows we made were never to be. And now we're apart. You were a part of me still. Oh, you were my friend on Blueberry Hill.
Fantastic, Ali.
Bravo. That's great.
Thank you.
Great stuff.
French hat on for you, and perhaps I'll bring my little washboard out for the next French song. So we'll see.
Definitely. Okay, we'll see you shortly,
Excellent.
Ali.
See you soon.
Thanks very much. Well, that's more like
Wow.
it. I'm glad we persisted and we got Ali sorted out, and she was able to bring us some of that
Absolutely.
amazing blues and jazz. What a voice.
I know, it makes you miss live music, doesn't it? Not long.
Well, I mean, Ali's a regular at the Vaults. For those of you who are able to visit the Vaults, you've probably seen Ali performing there, and she'll be back soon. So that's something to look forward to. But let's move forward. We are very happy to welcome Mr. Willie Taylor into the virtual pub tonight. Willie is the director of the Speyside Cooperage. He is. They've been in business since 1947, Willie. Family company, maybe best known for the cooperage up at Craigellachie, which is a very, very good tourist attraction. But also operations in Alloa, operations in the US. So, Willie, thanks for coming in tonight. We're talking about the bourbon cask. So, from your point of view, what is it that makes the bourbon cask so suitable for whiskey maturation?
Well, yeah, good evening, everybody. It's certainly the go-to cask. It's the measuring stick for most whiskies. Every distiller uses bourbon barrels. It really gives a really good maturation. We find that, I would say, in a reasonable year, or be as many as 400,000 bourbon barrels come into Scotland every year. And a good year, some of the higher years, you might be double that. So it's a very, very important source of quality casks for the Scotch whisky industry. And years gone by, they used to come from the USA in flat packs, or shooks as we call them, knocked down barrels, and they were raised either into the same, what we call a 40-gallon barrel. I think it's a 53 US gallon barrel, and frequently in Scotland they were made into hogsheads, which was in imperial terms was like a 56 gallons imperial gallon in Scotland. And I suggest that was done because that size of cask was more common in the early Scotch years, because of course most of the barrels that were used were sourced in Europe at that time, and it probably was a size that the people had become acquainted with, and the warehousing, even the storage was suitable for the larger cask. And I think the fact that Scotch has aged for 5, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 years, then the slightly larger cask was probably more suitable for the longer maturation period. I'm seeing someone saying, what's the most obscure wood you've had to work? I remember we got some Brazil, some wood from Brazil, and that we made into cask for one of the companies. That was really weird. Funny smell came from it. I never did taste the whiskey that came out of it, but that was one of the things. And generally speaking, it's oak. It's always oak. Or I'll say that it's always oak. I mean, there are other woods that have been used, but it's not allowable in Scotland anyway to use different woods rather than oak. But it does happen around the world, and actually some of the different woods give quite unusual flavours.
There's another question there, Willie, from John. He's asking, is leakage reducing as an issue year on year? Obviously, it's a big matter of concern for all distillers. They don't want to lose any whiskey out their cask. Obviously the Angels take their share, but the cask has to hold it as much as possible. So how much of an issue is leakage?
Well, obviously it has been a big issue, and distillers are very keen to control costs, and sometimes to keep costs down. Some of the cooperages in America maybe didn't use as good quality wood as was available, just on a cost basis. So you would see, or we do see, the used cask coming over have a lot of defect wood. Bearing in mind that I think I'm right in saying that bourbon can be bottled at is it 1 year or 2 years old? And most of them are bottled at 4 or maybe 5. So the losses maybe were more acceptable there over that shorter period. Also, the whilst machining has improved tremendously of late, there's still a lot of old equipment used in USA for barrel making, which tends to tear the wood. So sometimes the joints are not just as good as they could be, and you'll get the seepage out through the joints. So yeah, it's an ongoing problem. We found that there used to be a lot of leakage through the heads, and now with most people have gone on now to a tongue and groove head, and that's made the head much stronger. And there is a theory that because there's less play in the heads, then there's more pressure on the staves now. And we're certainly seeing in the used barrel from the USA a lot more broken casks coming. You know, they really do need quite a bit of coopering. So yeah, there is an issue there. There is modern machine being used, the CNC jointing machines, which we use ourselves in the States for our Speyside Bourbon Cooperage, and we're finding with that better machinery that it is giving a much better joint. So the barrels are going together a lot better now. And I think you'll find most of the cooperages in the USA will move to that over the next few years. I think it's just, you know, things improve as they go.
Okay. Another question there, Willie. How many times can you refill a cask before you need to discard it? From Matthew. Well,
I mean, I think you could refill it almost as many times as you like. I'm sure there's I'm sure there are casks still in the whiskey industry that would be anything up to, I don't know, 100 years old, certainly 50, 60 years old. And I don't say that's common, because all the distillers now, all of them have a wood policy, and the spirit is checked at point of emptying from every cask, and if it's not giving maturation quality, then they'll either discard that cask or they'll put it in for a rejuvenation, the sort of dechar rechar, and that depends on the spirit and whether or not the smoky flavors coming from a dechar rechar are suitable for that particular distiller's product.
Okay, and a question again from John. Obviously, you've spent your entire career, Willie, in the cooperage business. So what do you think about the wood that we used 30, 40 years ago compared to now? You see any difference?
Well, really, I'm not going to say that I see a lot of difference. There's nothing wrong with the wood that's growing either in Europe or in USA. All of them are managed to some extent. Certainly in Europe, France particular, brilliant at managing their forestry. In the USA, every state has a wood division that they are working very hard on management. Of course, in the USA, there's a lot of the wood is in private ownership, and even those private landowners now are being encouraged to pay much more attention to not really planting trees, but managing self-generated forests, so as all species are allowed to mature. So I'm pretty pleased. Really, it's down, as I said before, a lot to price. That all the wood is graded, and that there's still a lot of really, really top-notch wood out there. What's tended and still happens, I would say, that I'm not saying higher quality wood, but less defect wood and maybe tighter grain wood is selected by most of the stave mills for the wine industry, and anything that doesn't quite make a wine stave will happily go to bourbon. So it's not inferior. It's just a slightly lower grade than what goes in for the wine cask, for instance.
Okay.
So,
Willie, a question about the effect of climate change. I mean, obviously, the sustainability of the wood supply is a huge issue. Do you have any kind of insight into whether climate change might affect what trees are used for casks, or what impact that might have on your business?
well, we can only use white oak, so it's. But yeah, they're noticing that climate change is quite a serious problem, and particularly maybe in USA. Although the biggest danger is the pests that come with that climate change. Different insects and the non-native species that can now survive in different countries, and that's a problem for the trees for sure.
Cool. Willie, I've got a wee question for you. If you were to build your last cask, what would you build? I mean, would it be a barrel or a hogshead, a firkin? And what type of wood would you use? Would you use a black oak, an Alba, Robur? Would it be new wood? Would it be older wood that's been previously used, say in a wine? What would be your dream cask to build?
Good question.
Very good, very good. The American white oak and the European oaks are really very different and give different flavors. Probably in terms of hardness and softness, etc., maybe some of the European oaks are easier to work with. I think the air drying time in the wood is very important from a physical characteristic. That makes the cask the wood easier to work with if it's been air dried as opposed to kiln drying. What gives the best whiskey is one man's meat's another man's poison, really. So I don't think you can say that you get better whiskey from a European oak than you would get from an American oak or oaks from the East or whatever. They do all impart different flavors. And going forward, I would say that's the next real interest, and it's happening now to a small extent, but it will increase that the handling of new wood and how the cask is made, the heat sources that they are used to build the cask and bend the wood. It's all really important. The toasting, the charring, really, they all play a part. They all help to give a different flavor to the end product. So I can't say that I would have a preference, really.
Well, we raise a glass to you tonight, Willie, for providing us with so many great bourbon casks. It's a pleasure to see you in our virtual pub. Thanks for joining us and sharing your insights. Very, very interesting.
Thank you.
Cheers. Good health.
Cheers, Willie. All the best. Great stuff. Some
I could chat his ear off.
Top-notch knowledge. Well, I mean, we could spend a lot longer talking to Willie, absolutely. But we need to move forward. We've got a pub quiz to do. So let's take a look at the quiz, Andrew.
Yeah.
Now, everyone can join in the quiz. It's the same format as we've been doing, like 10 questions. They're all multiple choice. We'll give you the answers as we go along. So take part in the comments. You can let us know what you think the answers are as we go along. And we've used the July Outturn as a kind of inspiration for our quiz. So a bit of whiskey and some other things thrown in there. So you don't have to be a total whiskey geek to get something out of this. So we'll take it away. Andrew, you want to ask the first question?
Absolutely. Okay, so question 1. How many litres does a quarter cask hold? Is it A, 75, B, 125, C, 200, or D, 250 litres?
Right, that's quite a tricky one, I think, because I think there are some different definitions of a quarter cask, but the answer here is based on what I understand a quarter cask to be, which is the same size of cask that Pip Hills used to transport his find from Glenfarclas distillery when he was up there, and it was the first time he'd come across single cask whiskies taken straight from a cask, and it blew him away, and he managed to get a quarter cask into the boot of his well-known car, the Lagonda, which we were lucky enough to see at the vaults last year, beautifully restored. So the quarter cask that I'm thinking of here is the one that fits in the back of a Lagonda, that you can take a Glenfarclas quarter cask from Speyside down to Edinburgh. And the answer for that one is, let's see, well, we've got some A's, we've got 80, 75. Okay, well, the answer we're given tonight is 125. There might be some debate about that, though.
That was what it was like back in the 1980s. Let's go for that. 30 years ago.
We're going.
And if you want to read the story, the founder's tale, what a man, what a legend.
Yeah,
definitely worth a read.
It's definitely worth a read. It's brilliant. So the quarter cask does play a central role in that story. Okay, so question 2, I'll take this one. Who in the US bourbon world is credited for pioneering the charring of oak barrels to age bourbon? Now, that's obviously a regulation now that bourbon barrels need to be charred, but who was responsible for that happening? Was it A, Jack Daniels, B, Elijah Craig? Was it C, Jim Beam? Was it D, Pappy Van Winkle? Did you know this one, Andrew?
No, I didn't. It's an interesting wee answer, though. Let's see if anyone gets it right.
Right, let's see. Anyone having a go? We'll give them a moment.
It's one of those things.
This came up for me in a story that I wrote a long time ago for Unfiltered, and it was about happy accidents in the whiskey world and how sometimes innovation is not that someone sat down and just thought, okay, how can we do something better? How can we change things? It's actually just something happened by accident, and the result was a happy accident that something improved. So we've got a C for Jim Beam, we've got a B for Elijah Craig, we've got an A for Jack Daniels. So a few different choices, no clear-cut answer there, I don't think. But the answer is Elijah Craig, and the story goes that I think in the early 19th century, Elijah Craig had a fire at his whiskey warehouse, and the barrels caught on fire and they were charred, but he decided to fill them anyway and sent them down the Mississippi to Louisiana. And by the time they got there, they had this beautiful burnt, rich flavour, and they thought, oh, maybe we're onto something here. And that was the start of charring, Elijah Craig. So there you go.
Pure luck.
Right, over to you, Andrew.
Alrighty, so cask number 6.38 in this month's Outturn was called Hold Fast the Mortal Sword. What famous play does this bottle name come from? Is it A, Hamlet, B, Henry IV, C, King Lear, or D, Macbeth?
Right. Who remembers their well, it's obviously Shakespeare. We don't. That's not a spoiler. But like, who remembers their Shakespeare from school?
I definitely don't. English wasn't my strong point, if you can't tell.
I mean, my English teacher would be ashamed of me if I didn't get this, but I didn't find it easy. But we obviously have a literary member on the tasting panel who felt inspired with this bottling of 6.38. So we're getting, we've got some D's coming in. Yeah, we've got some literary members out there. I think everyone's going for D and
smart cookies.
Smart cookies. Anything else you can tell us about this one, Andrew, from your literary knowledge?
It was spoken by Macduff in Shakespeare's Scottish play, but it's not the distillery that this whiskey comes from.
Wow. Are you sure about that?
Absolutely not.
Because actually this distillery has got two names, or it's bottled under two different names. Some people might know it as Glendeverin, but Glendeverin is also Macduff, which is the character who spoke this line in Macbeth.
Yeah, there's an ambassador in Germany called Craig Fife, who his lineage is a Macduff. So this is the bottling that he goes for quite a lot.
There you go. Yeah. Maybe he'll be picking up a 6.38. So how about that? Not only is the bottle name from Macbeth, the line is spoken by Macduff, and that's actually the distillery that the bottle comes from. So we've got a very highbrow tasting panel chair there. Very good. Question 4. Legislation in the US for bourbon barrels to only be used once was introduced after the repeal of prohibition. So when did prohibition end? Was it 1918, 1923, 1933, and 1935? Right, I think we had a question about prohibition before, so this might seem a bit familiar, but any guesses there? So 1918, obviously the end of the First World War. Maybe it could have been then, 23, 33, or 35. And obviously this was a key moment in the future of the bourbon cask, because shortly after Prohibition, there was legislation passed which made it legal for a bourbon cask to only be used once. And it was the Coopers Union which lobbied for that law to be included in legislation just after the repeal of Prohibition, which basically meant the bourbon cask could only be used once, and after that it was going cheap, and the Scotch whisky industry obviously jumped in and started to pick up bourbon barrels. Okay, I'm talking too much. The answer to that is 1933, and yeah, we've got a lot of people who are up on their US alcohol history. Very good. Okay, over to you.
Right-o. Oh, I need to turn the page. Okay, what species of oak are bourbon barrels made from? Is it A, Quercus alba, B, Quercus robur, C, Quercus petrea, or D, Quercus mongolia? Interesting stuff. Getting my Latin tongue out there.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you look at it how many different types of wood there are throughout the world, and it's all oak, and we can all use it for whiskey. It's an amazing little thing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Stephen McConaughey's saying A, Quercus alba.
Good. Well, Dr. Andy's been doing a lot of this with us, so hopefully he gets the right answer if he's still watching.
Yeah. No excuses for Stephen. Yeah, Jason's coming out with A.
Yeah,
Ashwan, A. Stephen, everyone's going A. So,
of course it is.
Yeah.
The workhorse.
Any additional information you got there, Andrew?
It tastes really good if you put some whiskey into it for a little while. When you pour it back out again.
Willie Taylor.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely stunning. As I say, we can't say thank you enough to the people that organised this back in 1933 or before that, making sure that we use oak here in, here out.
It was definitely a good move for the Scotch industry. Okay.
Righty, up to you.
6. What does rancio refer to when describing whiskey, brandy, or wine? Rancio. You sometimes see it on society tasting notes, but what does it refer to? Is it A, baby's vomit, B, potent blue cheese, C, a deep, nutty, earthy, walnut-like flavour, or is it D, grassy notes? Okay, rancio. So
it's one of those interesting ones, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we're going to be talking about Cognac and Armagnac very shortly with Alan Wood. And rancio is certainly a term that is used more, I think, in the Cognac and Armagnac worlds, but we also use it in the whiskey world. But, you know, rancio maybe doesn't sound all that pleasant, but what does it mean?
It sounds too much like rancid.
Well,
Rancid chat.
That's the thing. That's the thing. We've got Daniel saying C, Whiskey Wizard saying C, Matthew saying B, potent blue cheese. Ashwant thinks it's grassy notes, and Stephen and Chesterville saying it's C. So the answer is actually a deep, nutty, earthy, walnut-like flavour. It's maybe one of these flavours, aromas that you kind of find it hard to pinpoint until you've got your nose in the glass and someone says this is rancio, and then it kind of makes sense. It's a very kind of earthy, mushroomy kind of note.
It tends to happen with very well-aged spirits, so I think we're going to get a little bit of that, of the Armagnac that we're going to taste very shortly. Yeah,
but you can also get it from very well-aged whiskies as well, which is, you know,
absolutely.
I think it really only comes with age. It's a fantastic aroma, but
definitely does.
Hard to come by. Okay, Andrew, your turn.
So rattle through it. So cask number 35.260 After the Sugar Rush was inspired, or is inspired, by the album After the Gold Rush by which artists? So Van Morrison, Niles Lofgren, Johnny Cash, Neil Young.
I don't know what this has got to do with whiskey at all, but we've got obviously a musically minded member of the tasting panel who felt inspired to name this bottling from Distillery 35 After the Sugar Rush, After the Gold Rush. We've got Mark Lindsay saying Neil Young, Matthew saying D for Neil Young, D. Okay, so I guess there's some Neil Young fans out there. There you go. Neil Young, I think, is his third album in his early days. And Neil Young is still going strong, been doing some good stuff during lockdown for Neil Young fans. Still going strong, so good
My mum
stuff.
loved him.
Oh, he's one of the greats, no doubt. Okay,
Absolutely.
Question 8. How many times is Armagnac distilled? So looking ahead to our Armagnac tasting, that we thought we'd quiz you to see how much you know about your Armagnac. So how many times is it distilled? Once, twice, 2.5 times, or 3 times? And obviously, there's loads of whiskies from different distilleries which are distilled different lengths of time. But Armagnac, what do you think? Let's see if we get any answers in.
Not enough is one of the answers.
Maybe not a fan there. Daniel's saying A. Whiskey Wizard is saying A. Yeah, okay. And the answer is
just once.
Yep. Unlike Cognac, which is distilled twice. Okay. Question 9. So over to you, Andrew.
Okay, so moving into Cognac, what is the predominant grape type used in Cognac? Now that's the main one. There is 3 different types we can use, but the main one. So is it A, Colombard, B, Ugni Blanc, Faux Blanche, or D, Semillon? Hope my French was on point there.
You sounded like a native.
I think I'll take that as a good thing.
Yeah. Okay, that's a tricky one. You know, unless you know your Cognac, then that's a tricky one maybe for whiskey drinkers. Harry Gale is saying A. Stephen is saying B. Ugni Blanc. Anne is A. Stephen is A. Daniel's B. So kind of mixed responses to that one.
Okay. Trebbiano. Yeah.
John is saying B. Oh, John has got it right.
You should know that he was there with us a few years ago. So yeah, Ugni Blanc.
Yeah, no excuses for John. Okay, final question. We're bringing it back to the bourbon cask. What's the difference between a barrel and a hogshead? So, is it A, a barrel is 50 litres smaller than a hogshead? B, a barrel is 50 litres larger than a hogshead? C, a barrel has been charred, whereas a hogshead hasn't? Or D, there's no difference except in name. So Mark is saying 50 litres, but he's not saying whether it's 50 litres smaller or 50 litres larger. Stephen's saying A.
A.
Yeah.
It's an interestingly worded question, this one.
How do you mean?
So normally you go up in increments, so it gives a bit more of an indication. This is nicely worded.
I was just trying to confuse people. No, everyone's going for A. They all know their stuff. Maybe they were listening to Willie. Right?
Absolutely.
So the answer is, yeah, a barrel is 50 litres smaller than a hogshead. Yeah, there's a flood of A's coming in there in the comment. Right, good stuff. A little pop quiz. Well done to all of you for taking part. And
thank you.
Yep, some serious whiskey knowledge out there. Not just whiskey knowledge, some literary knowledge, some musical knowledge. Lots of that on display. Great. Right, now it's time to turn from US Independence Day to France's National Day on the 14th of July, the storming of the Bastille. So Bastille Day, and we're going to celebrate that with Cognac and Armagnac. And I'm delighted to introduce a very well-known face at the Society, Alan Wood, formerly of Queen Street, but most recently taken up home in Glasgow, where he will be at the Glasgow Members Room, the new Members Room, which unfortunately had to close up just after Alan arrived. But he'll be back very soon. Alan, how are you doing? How are you surviving lockdown?
Oh, not too bad. Just keeping myself busy. They must have known I was coming to close the members' room and save all the whiskey, but it's not what we're here to talk about tonight. We're here to talk about Cognac and Armagnac. And about a year ago, I was lucky enough to go out to both Cognac and Armagnac when I was doing my time with the Queen Street venue. And Cognac has a very kind of squiffy reputation. It's often seen as something that kind of lives at the back of your drinks cupboard or is, used widely in popular music videos. But for me, Cognac is something I never really viewed with any great deal. I never really had much knowledge about. And once I went out, for anybody that I've served in both the Queen Street Members Room and the Glasgow Bath Street venue, if you get me talking about Cognac, I just don't shut up about it, in all honesty. So the first one we're going to have a look at is the Society Cognacs. And the Society Cognacs are something quite unusual. The Society has always played around with Cognacs, and it goes back to our various heritages. But for me, I think the Society Cognac is quite an interesting beast. Because not only is it very different and very challenging from a whiskey drinker's palate, because for me, I drink peated whiskies. I love peaty, smoky, cold medicine. So for me, I shouldn't particularly enjoy this dram, but I do. I find it a very warming, very rich, very kind of decadent style of spirit as well. Now, the one that my two colleagues here are trying is the C3.1, which is a Fragrant Ramble. Now, the Fragrant Ramble, for me, it's a very apropos name for the dram. It's a really kind of interesting bouquet, and very kind of in-depth taste and flavor on it as well. This was from one of the distilleries that we actually were lucky enough to visit as well. And what's quite interesting with Cognac especially is they use something called eau de vie, which is a distilled version of white wine. This is often made using Uni Blanc grapes that are considered to be too acidic or too tart. When we visited this distillery, I had the rather unusual experience myself. I've been around many whiskey distilleries, no Cognac distilleries. And one of the first things we were offered when we arrived was a glass of Cognac heads. Now, if you've ever been around a whiskey distillery tour, it often will be told that you don't want to drink the heads because the heads are where all the alcohol is stored. But for the Cognac heads, it's quite an unusual experience. The Cognac stills themselves are a very different and unique shape, and it's a very different style of drinking. For me, the easiest way I found of beginning to associate with cognac is to treat it like a sherry cask whiskey. It's got those rich tobacco, woody flavors, and it comes from that oak maturation. What's also quite unusual with the cognac especially is they use a cask topping up system of maturation. So one cask will often not be that pure spirit, but it will be topped up for year on year on year end. The C3.1 also has a designation of extra old. And for me, this is another reason why I'm a particular now newfound fanatic of cognac. There's no age statement. So you're not prejudiced towards how this thing should taste, how this thing should smell. The C3.1 is designated as an XO, term extra old. And the fact that it's actually written extra old in the bottle shows that the component constituent parts of this cognac is they're all above 10 years of age, often into the decades as well. So again, we are looking at a spirit that is truly unique and different, and for me encapsulates what the society is all about, which is just going a bit off the beaten path and seeing what we can do with things. But for me as well, the color alone is a fantastic dram. I'm not quite sure you can see that clearly, but this for me is a rich, nutty, spicy style of dram. And I do encourage you, if you ever get a chance and if you're ever in the venue, try a cognac. If you're looking for something a bit different, a bit unusual, the Trifle Delightful is a brilliant entry cognac, and there's cognacs that go all the way up. And for me, I think it's a truly expressive and different style of drink. And cognac has a lot of fond memories for me because the hospitality was so open, welcoming, and they were so keen to tell us about what they were doing. But for me as well, it's got a much more younger, fruitier style, and you get that real essence of tobacco coming through. The Cognac C3 is from the appellation Grand Champagne. These are the different regions of cognac that are split into producing regions. So much like the regions within the producing different styles of whiskey, the different regions between cognac will often produce different styles, different flavors, different textures of spirit. For me, I'm a particular fan of this one because A, it's a very rich, very easygoing dram, but also it's got from a fairly unknown house that's kind of sort of sneaks in under the radar because everybody thinks Hennessy is the big beast of cognac, but there's so many different brands, so many different styles of cognac out there as well. What I tend to recommend when you are trying society cognac is, first of all, as with any society spirit, it is cask strength. This one here, the C3.1, comes in at 50.9% ABV. So it still is quite strong. But I guarantee you, even on the sip, you do not taste the alcohol to a great deal. But instead goes down very smooth. And for me, it doesn't particularly burn. So going back to kind of Andrew Park's earlier comment about this being whiskey drinking weather, I think this is cognac drinking weather as well. Because it just puts a nice bit of fire back in you. It's a nice little kind of bit of spice, bit of heat, but nothing too overpowering. And also as well, for me, another great way to experiment with cognac is in cocktails. I urge every person that buys a bottle of cognac from us, try it in a cocktail. Try it with a cube of ice, because you get a much more different development of flavors. Never be afraid to experiment with what we have. During our time in cognac as well, yeah, sorry.
No, Alan, I was just we were talking about rancio in the quiz there, and for me, this kind of embodies that sense of rancio. You know, this I know that we don't put an age statement. You're not allowed to put an age statement on cognac. So XO, extra old, can mean basically anything that's more than 10 years old, I think. But you know, this one I think is 30 years old, though we can't put it on the bottle. So it's seriously aged cognac. And you know, when you stick your nose in the glass, that the word rancio comes to mind in terms of the absolute depth of that, which I think can only come from a really aged spirit.
And for me, what's fantastic with our cognacs especially is our cognacs come from a series of casks that have been matured individually. Because often what will happen is these big houses will marry barrels together to create their VS, their XO, their VSOP. What we've done is we've actually taken a rack of casks and we've done that bottling. So this is a unique spirit in its own. Coming in at 50% for 30 years old, it's still quite good for its age. You don't really taste the alcohol. And for me as well, what's great with this is that I never really viewed cognac as much of a drink. I'd never really had much of experience of it. My only experience was a bottle sitting on a back bar, a bit alone and unloved. And now I'm a huge proponent of it. I think it's a brilliant style of spirit and a brilliant style of drink, to be honest, as well. And I'm probably the least sounding Frenchman in the world.
I just remember this is what everyone was drinking 50 years ago or 60 years ago before whiskey really took over. You know, it's a cracking element. It's a very underestimated.
What's great is the people in cognac don't really drink a lot of cognac. A lot of it is exported out to the wider world. And what I find particularly fascinating is this spirit will not have spent its entire life in a cask. It may have been put into essentially demijohns to age to when the cognac hits a certain point and they say, right, that's enough. They will take the spirit out the cask and put it into a demijohn for a later release. Whereas most whiskey distilleries will just bottle the cask there and then. Whereas with the cognacs, if they think they can get a better market for it a few years later, they will often do that. And it leads to an interesting concept as well. When you take into account that cognac is not like single malt whiskey, it doesn't come from malted barley. It comes from a mixture of grapes. So, and I know this is probably going to rattle someone's cage in the comments section, you can play with the sort of concept of terroir and that whole kind of location influencing flavor as well. But for me as well, it's a great thing as well.
There's a question from Daniel. Alan, I don't know if you know the answer to this one. Are all the SMWS cognacs aged in cognac, or are they landed in the UK? I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but what do you say?
There is a bonded warehouse in Liverpool that I know a couple of the big houses mature their cognac in as well. As to our cognacs, I'm not 100% certain. I would assume that they have spent a degree of aging over here because we have done cognac cask whiskies. But as to sort of, yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Okay. And from John, do you think at great age all spirits start to take on some of the same flavour nuances? And I can see where John's coming from with this, because when you get a really old and dignified bottling of whiskey from the society, it does, you know, and that's why we see that term rancio in the tasting notes as well. I think that there is this sense of maturity which you can detect in whiskies or great age, which is kind of similar to cognacs or even Armagnac sometimes.
I think you can, with a certain degree, especially with cognac, you get that richer, velvetier kind of style. And for myself as well, I have been known to enjoy the occasional cigar. So this is a brilliant kind of accompaniment to that as well. And for me, I think cognacs are, with age, you get a much more mellowing and relaxation time. And what's important for me is that you don't taste, and I know I've said this, but you don't taste the alcohol. So it's a brilliant introduction to cask strength spirit as a whole, because some people's first try, they might go, oh, I can taste the spirit level in the whiskey. Whereas with the cognacs, it's a much more smoother, mellower approach. And often our cognacs can be quite a high percentage, but they do have a great kind of all-rounder aspect to it as well.
Great stuff. Listen, now we need to move on, because I know we're going to talk about Armagnac as well, and you've got a bottle there. So we've tasted a phenomenal cognac. Let's drink some Armagnac.
So this one, Armagnac, is something that's now very close to my heart, because while I enjoyed the cognac experience while I was over there, Armagnac was a whole different philosophy. The key reason being is the key fact for Armagnac is the Armagnac's angel share totals the same, Armagnac's production totals the amount of angel share cognac loses in a year. So for me, I think it's a great thing, and it's such a niche spirit and a very different style. A2.2 Enchanted Woodland Stroll. Now, for me, A2, when we visited that distillery, was just a brilliant place to go. Key quintessential example of Gascon hospitality. Now, what I particularly enjoy about Armagnac is in the whiskey industry, we have an organization known as the Keepers of the Quaich. And I know there are a few SMWS, both members of staff, ambassadors, and alumni that are Keepers of the Quaich. In Armagnac, however, they have something that sounds a little more different, which is they're called the Musketeers, and they're the preservers of Gascon heritage. So that alone, I think, lends it a bit more of a fun and playfulness as well. Armagnac also, much like cognac, is made from a mixture of grapes. With the different crus, the one that I'm trying at the moment, the A2.2, is made from Bacau and Uni Blanc and comes in at 48.8% ABV. So again, the percentage is still quite high for what it traditionally is. But for me as well, on the nose, you get a real kind of woody, peppery spice, even though from vintage 1974, it has got a bit of age behind it. Another thing I find really fascinating, because I was brought up around the whiskey industry, I was brought up with being instilled into my head, one still makes one spirit. So the Glenkinchie still will produce Glenkinchie whiskey. Whereas in Armagnac, the stills will travel. The stills will move around the country. And for me, that's what's great, because the stills will produce different Armagnacs. So it is the different families that produce this table wine that's too acidic. They will distill this. And when the still actually arrives at the farm, the still will run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a period of a couple of months, I believe, and they will move on. And it's a great festival, and it's a great kind of togetherness as well. And when we visited this distillery, the head distiller, he was a very friendly guy, and he was taking us around his cask house. And it was almost as if we were part of the family. And for me, whenever I try Armagnac, I get that memory, I get that link, and it really does make for a great dram as well. And for me as well, it tastes very much like a Speyside whiskey. You've got that kind of woody spice, that sort of atypical chewiness to it as well. And for me, I always encourage people, if you're looking to try something a bit different and a bit kind of unusual from the Society catalogue, I would always go for an Armagnac or a Cognac, because at the end of the day, they are unusual and great spirits as well. I mean,
you're right there. Good memories of Armagnac.
Very good.
I mean, the team at the distillery, Sandra, they couldn't have made us more hospitable. And my takeaway moment is the head distiller literally climbing over 20 feet of casks just to give Alan a sample of something else. I mean, Alan had hollow legs that day, because every 5 minutes he was getting past something else to try. I mean, the passion just shone from the distillery. And we've got a very good working relationship with them as well. So what I've got behind me is, this is one of theirs. Might as well know it. This is from a peated cask that we sent over initially for them to mature some Armagnac in. And in turn, we were able to get another Armagnac cask called 53331, a farewell to Armagnac. We've worked with this distillery quite closely to put in new flavours and a different style of whiskey. So that's the first Armagnac cask we've ever done. So great stuff there. And yeah, definitely look out for them.
People say it's, the difference between Cognac and Armagnac is that Armagnac is maybe more rustic. It's a little bit more rural than Cognac, but it's still, to me, a very refined drink. I think the difference is maybe that there is a lot of very, very small scale producers in the Armagnac region, and you need to be a little bit more selective about the Armagnac that you pick up. But I mean, that's the Society's job, obviously, to make sure that the Armagnac that we bottle really is the very best that's out there. And there's maybe more variation within the Armagnac world, but it doesn't mean that rustic character by no means means it's lesser at all than Cognac. I think for me also, it's a fantastic spirit. It's maybe just about being a wee bit more selective about what you pick up.
Absolutely. I mean,
there are some great brands of Armagnac, and there are some unusual casks. And the Society itself, we have released numerous Armagnacs, and I think it is a great and just a different style of spirit. And it's, I would say, a very well-kept secret, but not doing a good job of keeping the secret here. But for me, it is such an inherently unusual style that if anybody kind of chatted to me after my trip, and members included, of course, that I wouldn't shut up about it. It really did revolutionize my drinking. Is that I found a spirit that I usually wouldn't have paid much attention to, I wouldn't have gone for in the end, but you get a much more interesting and unusual style of whiskey, spirit, coming out at the end of it as well.
Yeah. I'll give you a very quick story before we shimmy on. And one of my takeaway moments was visiting Armagnac distillery for lunch. And we're sitting around the table with the family and having our lunch, and the distiller wheels out a trolley, and on it is an Armagnac from every year that he's been distilling. And John McShane was with us, and he looks over the trolley and he starts laughing. And he's like, and the distiller's like, what's going on? It's like, I don't think you've got that one there for me. It's only goes up to the 1970s. He was like, hold on a second. It's like, what age is your birthday? And I won't say it, John, I won't embarrass you, but just says, wait a minute, comes back through, plonks a bottle of Armagnac from John's birthday year on the table and walks away and just says, enjoy. I mean, that's just encapsulates the French hospitality. This is a very old Armagnac. He's never going to see it again. And just says, enjoy, help yourself, you're my guest. And that's what I love. Just to move on, we're doing a little Chateau Labatt. That's it. Thank you very much. Just to move on, we've got a little deal for the Cognac and Armagnac we've got today. And if you go to our website, and if you do want to purchase them, our discount code for 20% off the bottles is Alembic, still as in this types of stills that you use. So Alembic will get you 20% off.
Brilliant. Okay, Alan, thanks very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you fairly soon in the Glasgow members room. We're going to be back in business on the 15th, I believe. So look forward to catching up for a dram. So thanks very much for the insight. Great stuff. And everybody can see it. Try your cognac. Brilliant stuff.
Cheers.
Right. Okay. Right. Let's get back over to Ali Affleck. Okay, we are going to play out. We're in a French mood now with some cognac, with Armagnac. We started off in the States. We've moved over to France, and we're going to ask Ali to play us out with some French music, right, Ali? So I hope you're with us. You all set, Ali? You there?
Yeah, can you see me?
Yes,
yeah.
We can see you.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Fantastic. Okay, Ali,
All right.
we're all set. Take it away.
Okay, we're going to start with a really fun little song that Django Reinhardt used to perform. Here we go. we're going to shift the gears. You all know this one, a very famous song called The Dead Leaves.
Chanson qui nous ressemblait, toi qui m'aimais et je t'aimais. Nous vivions tous les deux ensemble. Toi qui m'aimais et je t'aimais. Mais la vie c'est pas qu'elle s'est scellée. Nous tous sommes morts, souffrés de vie. Et la mer efface sous les sablés des bras dormants, des soumis. Chanson qui nous ressemblait, toi qui m'aimais et je t'aimais. Nous vivions tous les deux ensemble. Toi qui m'aimais, non, je t'aimais. Mais la vie, c'est pas qui s'est s'aimer. Tout doucement, sans faire de bruit. Et la mer sur les sablés de pas d'un monde et soumis.
That one's a bit of a downer, so we're going to, the final song I'm going to do, which has already started. Hold your horses, Mr. Hamilton. So I just want to quickly say these are two of these wonderful men that I work with frequently, and we perform at obviously Whiskey Vaults, Mr. Dick Lee on the saxophone, and Mr. Steve Hamilton on the old Joanna piano. We're going to end with one last one. And I'll bring out the old washboard just for a bit of fun. Even though it certainly is not used in French music, but we can break the rules a little bit. This is a great song about a place in Paris called Ménilmontant. Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to doing it again soon.
That was brilliant.
Fantastic, Ali.
So
Great
good.
stuff. Yeah, nice and mellow. I had my Armagnac in there in the glass there, and that was just perfect. I was transported from a fairly dreich Glasgow evening to a nice sunset in Armagnac. So lovely job. Thanks, Ali.
Brilliant.
Nice to see you. See
Can't
you
wait to
again.
see you.
Thank you. I wish I had a neck too. Maybe.
Cheers,
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, good stuff. All right. Well, I think that's us, Andrew. We've covered a lot of ground tonight. Ali Affleck taking us from the US to France with her jazz and blues, and then some French tunes. Jenna Elie joining us from the west coast of the US. Willie Taylor with his bourbon cask knowledge, and Alan Wood taking us deep into the world of Cognac and Armagnac. So thank you to all our guests. Andrew, thank you very much to you for joining.
Thank you, Richard. Cheers.
Tonight. Great to see you, and we'll see you very soon, I hope. But
it's great to see all our members there as well. Hope everyone's well. Have a good weekend. Stay safe.
Absolutely. Okay, good stuff. Right, I think that is pretty much us for the evening. Again, a shout out to everyone for coming into the pub session tonight and being part of things. Always good to see you. Next Friday, 8 p.m. is our 1st July virtual tasting. It's going to be with Stephen McConaughey, with his sidekick Lee Connor. So I know many of you have your tasting packs ready for that, and that's going to be a good night. So that's next Friday, 8 p.m. But there's going to be virtual tastings across the EU and across the world, really. So look at your local websites to find out what's going on and get involved. The big news for us really is that the members' rooms are getting ready to reopen. The London Greville Street members' room is going to be open on Monday the 6th. That's next Monday. The courtyard in the vaults is going to be on Tuesday the 7th. We're putting up some kind of marquee to keep people dry, at least if the weather's not great. But Tuesday the 7th for the courtyard at the vaults. And then the actual venues, the members' rooms themselves, are going to be open from Wednesday the 15th of July. That's the vaults, Queen Street and Glasgow from Wednesday the 15th. There are guidelines in place about how things are changing. You're going to have to book in advance to make sure you've got your space and we keep everyone safe. But the good news is that the doors are going to be open again for business, and we'll be seeing members in the flesh and not just from a video camera and a laptop from wherever you are. So check the website for up-to-date information and all that, and we look forward to seeing you soon. So that's pretty much it. Stay safe, stay sensible, follow the guidelines, and we'll see you soon. And remember, hashtag altogether SMWS. Thanks, everyone. Good night.